Hello, my name is Kelsey Weimer and this is my mind map on different approaches to reading. While listening to the lecture about historical perspectives on reading, my first initial reaction was that it was all slightly overwhelming. I began outlining the lecture by thinking of the different approaches taken to reading over the last 100 years, such as through phonics, instruction, comprehension, whole language, and literature. Next, maybe it's the historian in me, but I found it interesting to map out the different years that each approach was most popular in. My mind map reflects just that. The approach extends out in blue from the central concept of approaches to reading. From each concept, I put when that thought was most relevant in thought bubbles. I noticed from my mind map that the most current day theories draw on many different strategies, taking a more inclusive approach. The literature-based approach was relevant in the 1910s. Reading instruction was equated to the appreciation of literature. This was also an era of frequent debate between the benefits of silent reading versus verbal. Next, the whole language approach was popular in many different settings. For example, in the 1970s, whole language approach was favored in an era that emphasized the connection between reading instruction, language meaning, and social justice. Later, in the 1990s, with the Reading Excellence program that gave grants to schools to use scientifically proven effective reading strategies, whole language was one theory considered acceptable. Additionally, the emphasis on vocabulary in the 2000s was fueled by whole language. Often, approaches to reading place an emphasis on instructional practices of reading teachers. Beginning in the 1950s, teachers were told to teach reading and writing together. In the 1960s, more concrete reading strategies were prominent, such as SQ3R and directed reading. In 2003, President Bush's No Child Left Behind Act ultimately places a large portion of a student's success in reading on educators. Finally, with the Common Core in 2011, the emphasis on teacher accountability is at its peak. The comprehension approach to literacy has often been revisited. Beginning in the 1930s, standardized reading programs emphasized comprehension. Also, the 60s-born strategy of directed reading had strong comprehension components. More modern programs such as the Reading Excellence Act, No Child Left Behind, and the Common Core also emphasize reading comprehension. Finally, the phonetic approach to reading has been immensely popular in the last century. In 1998, the reading debate between comprehension and phonics was settled with the Reading Excellence Act by deciding that the best approach is a blend between the two. In 2000, the National Reading Panel emphasized instead phonemic awareness, or focusing on the function of the individual sounds within words. As my mind map emphasizes, there are many different approaches to literacy. They are constantly being combined, reworked, and revisited, similar to trends in fashion. Perhaps the message is that the power of the whole is stronger than the power of one.